She is never truly alone. Behind that quiet phone screen, there are 10, 20, perhaps 100 men waiting for her attention. Some arrive in luxury cars, some flaunt sculpted bodies and charming smiles. All of them come offering something. And then there is you. No fortune, no perfect physique, no polished pickup lines. But here is the secret: none of that matters. Because Machiavelli would have smiled in your direction. He understood something that every desperate man forgets: that power does not come from appearing to be the best, but from being unforgettable. Sure, you could compete, you could try to impress her, send gifts, write poems, dedicate songs, but every attempt to stand out only buries you deeper among the rest, and she feels it. Not through logic, but through instinct. The scent of neediness, the anxiety hidden in your tone, the nervous energy that betrays your calm. She does not analyze these things, she simply senses them. Because women do not choose like men do. They feel before they think. And that brings us to the uncomfortable truth. The harder you try to make her like you, the less she will. The moment you reshape yourself to fit her expectations, you stop being authentic. You become the 10th replica. And in that instant, you have already lost. But there exists another path, one that few ever discover. It is not about tricks, pickup lines, or modern formulas. It is about something far deeper: psychology, perception, emotional control, and strategy. Machiavelli wrote of kings, power, and manipulation. Yet, if he were alive today, he would not sit in a palace. He would be here, showing you how to conquer something far more complex than a throne: the emotional desire of a woman surrounded by endless options. Because what drives a queen is the same thing that drives a ruler: the hunger for what is rare, the fascination with what cannot be read, the need to feel something no one else can make her feel. This is not another lesson in seduction. It is a manual for the few, the 10% who dare to break the rules of the game. If you came here looking for shortcuts or magic formulas, stop now. But if you are ready to become the kind of man who never competes because he already knows how to command the emotional field, then keep watching. You are about to learn how to make her choose you, even when she has 1,000 men chasing her. The 9 who compete for her affection have already lost, not because they are unattractive, not because they lack money or style, but because they believe that seduction is a race, and the faster they run, the further she slips away. Because female desire does not respond to effort, it responds to mystery. One man texts her every morning, another sends her jokes and memes, the next offers dinner and attention. Different faces, same pattern, more effort, more validation, more predictable moves. What they fail to realize is that by doing this, they all end up in the same category. The category of men who are too available, and what is easily available, no matter how valuable, becomes ordinary, and what is ordinary is ignored. Machiavelli understood this centuries ago. Too much generosity without scarcity breeds contempt. In the realm of seduction, predictability is death. Every instant reply, every extra compliment, every needy gesture speaks the same unspoken truth: you have the power. I only wish to be chosen. And that, my brother, is where attraction dies. Picture this: you are sitting in a job interview and one candidate walks in and says, "I will do anything, just give me a chance." Does that command respect? Does it inspire confidence? Number. It only creates pity, because true confidence is never announced. It is felt. That is what the other 9 men never grasp. They are so obsessed with being chosen that they forget the most essential rule. A woman does not fall for the man who tries the hardest to impress her. She falls for the one who makes her feel something she cannot name. And that emotion is born not from what you do, but from what you choose not to do. You do not chase, you do not beg, you do not insist. Because you understand that desire grows in distance, that scarcity pulls stronger than excess, that a well-timed silence can speak louder than 1,000 words. You do not vanish to play games, you step back because your life already has weight and direction. And she feels that difference. The man who refuses to compete unsettles her. He disturbs her expectations. She begins to wonder, why does he not act like the others? Why does he not pursue me? Why does he not bend for my attention? That uncertainty becomes curiosity. Curiosity turns into focus. And focus is the first spark of desire. They wait in line, you create mystery. They expose themselves, you observe. They grow desperate, you decide when to appear. That is not arrogance. It is strategy. It is power without noise. It is the line that separates an admirer from an experience. And that difference determines everything: who remains a replaceable option and who becomes unforgettable. Have you noticed what every man women secretly crave has in common? It is not beauty, it is not wealth, it is energy, the calm gravity of a man who does not need to prove anything. Because the one who refuses to compete radiates something dangerously attractive: self-worth. When he enters a room without seeking eyes, and yet the atmosphere shifts around him, That is not coincidence. It is the echo of inner stability, emotional control, and a life already full. And she senses that before a single word leaves your mouth. While the other 9 strive to match her ideal, you become the challenge. They seek approval, you make an impact. They bend to please, you set the tone. They struggle to belong to her world, you remain the man who already owns one. There is an unwritten rule, one Machiavelli would have placed on the first page. The man who triumphs is not the one who plays best, but the one who changes the game. While the rest compete for her attention, you do the unthinkable. You step away from the competition. And that single move rewrites the dynamic. She is used to men who chase, who respond within seconds, who ask if she is fine, who constantly worry about her thoughts, her moods, her needs. Empathy is not the enemy. The killer of attraction is predictability. When she can foresee every word you will say, when she knows when you will say it and why, the mystery dies. And without mystery, there is no spark. Power never lives in what you do for her. Real power lives in what you awaken in her, without lifting a finger more than necessary. Do you know what happens when you finally stop playing her game? The entire pattern collapses. She freezes, uncertain, unprepared. That subtle discomfort inside her begins to awaken something she cannot name, a deep, almost involuntary curiosity to understand you, not because you tried harder, but because you interrupted her emotional program. Her mind expected a familiar rhythm, but you broke the sequence. While the others act exactly as she predicts, you act in ways she cannot anticipate. You are not rude, you are not detached, but you are not an open book either. You are a riddle with no clear solution, and that very mystery pulls her in. That is why not chasing creates value, because every message you choose not to send, every reply you do not rush, every silence you hold with confidence, builds an emotional gravity stronger than any affectionate word could ever create. It is not indifference, it is psychological refinement. It is the quiet authority of a man whose inner world is so grounded that he does not need attention to feel significant. She does not remember you because you spoke endlessly. She remembers you because when you did speak, every word mattered. Do you wish to become unforgettable? Then understand this truth. The man who refuses to play becomes the prize, because you are not another visitor trying to enter her life. You are a man whose life already carries such completeness that she wants to step inside it. And this is not poetic exaggeration, it is biology. When a woman senses that you are not defined by her validation, something in her emotional system begins to reorganize. You are no longer just a suitor, you become an anomaly, an emotionally untouchable man. And in a world where everyone is begging to be noticed, that kind of man is like fire surrounded by ice. The unexpected always draws the strongest pull. You step away from the game because you understand a hard truth. The game is rigged. You cannot win by fighting for attention because your energy is far more valuable than her approval. And even if you never say it aloud, that truth radiates from you, through your posture, your calm silence, your steady gaze free from tension. While others bend to her, you are the one who shatters her rhythm. They twist themselves to fit her world, you remain unshaped, unbent. And that stillness, that emotional control, speaks louder than 1,000 rushed texts. The strength of refusing to play is not a manipulation, it is the clearest signal that you have already chosen yourself. And when a man chooses himself first, she feels it, she cannot ignore it. Being remembered by a woman has nothing to do with perfection. It is about the emotional impression you leave behind. And that impression is not written in flowers, gifts, or compliments. It is recorded in something most never understand: emotional anchoring. An emotional anchor is a moment so charged with feeling that her mind links that emotion to you. It is not built through logic, it is built through sensation. And when that anchor forms, every time that emotion resurfaces in her life, she will think of you. Even if there are others, even if she is with someone else, even if the years pass. Machiavelli would have called that the highest form of power, because true power is not about direct control, but the ability to influence even in your absence. And here is the brutal truth. She does not remember the man who treated her the best. She remembers the one who shook her soul. It may sound unfair, but it is entirely real. That is why countless good men fade into oblivion, not because they lacked kindness, but because they were emotionally neutral. And neutrality never lingers in the mind. The human brain does not preserve calm, it preserves extremes. It holds on to what shakes it, what disturbs its balance, what makes it feel alive. Do you see it now? You do not need to be the best. You only need to be impossible to forget. And how is that achieved? Not through manipulation, but through depth. By stepping beyond the script every other man repeats. When others tell her, "You are beautiful," you look deeper and say, "There is something about the way you see the world that unsettles me, and I love that." Not because you practiced it, but because you are present, because you see her beyond the body, beyond the decoration, beyond the disguise. Most men give her what she expects, endless validation. You give her what she secretly craves, self-reflection. Your goal is not to make her like you. Your goal is to make her think of you when you are gone. And that happens only when you touch corners of her mind that no one has ever reached. When she feels that no one has understood her contradictions quite like you. When your words awaken thoughts that leave her silently shaken. When you help her see something within herself she never had words for. That is emotional anchoring, and within it lies the deepest psychological mechanism of all. The human mind does not separate the emotion from the source. When you trigger a powerful feeling, her subconscious ties that emotion directly to you. That is how advertising works. That is how trauma works, and that is exactly how attraction works. You do not want to be remembered as the nice guy who was always available. You want to be the thought that returns without warning, the one she cannot escape. You want her to hear a song and feel your presence, to catch a familiar scent and think of you, to see a sunset and wonder where you are. That is what it means to exist in her mind even when you are not around. And that cannot be achieved through competition, only through unique moments. You do not need many. Just one or two that strike deep. A conversation that left a mark. A gesture she never anticipated. A phrase that kept echoing long after you said it. A silence that made her heart uneasy. A goodbye she never saw coming. The rest fight to be constant. You create moments that cannot be duplicated. They cling to stay close. You are the one who, even in absence, never truly disappears. But there is a deeper layer to this art. The strongest emotional anchor is not built around fleeting passion, it is built around transformation. If she feels that in your presence she discovers a new part of herself, that she begins to think differently, that she reconnects with emotions others never reached, then she does not merely remember you, she needs you. Not because you depend on her, but because, emotionally, you freed her. You showed her a new dimension of feeling, and the most dangerous truth of all is that this experience exists only with you. You are not just someone who passed through her story, you are a turning point. You are not merely an intense memory, you become her new emotional standard. After you, the others are not only less, they are irrelevant. And that distortion, that internal comparison, does not fade easily. There is a reason why you can be everything she says she wants, and still not be chosen. And it is not your fault. It is because no one ever taught you how female psychology truly works. Not school, not friends, not even family. But today, that changes because what you are about to learn will completely reconstruct how you see desire itself. First, you must understand something essential. The female brain processes desire in a way completely different from the male brain. And this is not poetry, it is neuroscience. Functional MRI scans reveal that when men respond to attraction, the visual centers of the brain light up. In women, however, the regions most activated are those tied to emotional memory, the amygdala and the hippocampus. What does that reveal? It means a woman does not fall for what she sees, she falls for what she feels in your presence. Men are drawn by images. Women are drawn by the emotions those images awaken inside them. That is why two men can share the same physical traits, yet one evokes desire and the other indifference. The difference is never the body, it is the emotional frequency they project. Now we reach the first scientific key. Female desire depends on emotional intensity and unpredictability. For a woman to feel deep attraction, two things must coexist: an emotion that moves her and the uncertainty of not knowing when or how it will appear. If you are too linear, too available, too controlled, you flatten her emotional landscape. And without emotional curves, there is no depth. This is why the nice guy fades into the background. He creates safety, but not stimulation. He offers calm, but no tension. In contrast, the man who masters his energy, who balances attention with silence, warmth with distance, interest with restraint, activates something entirely different: emotional fascination. Now comes the second powerful truth. According to attachment theory, proposed by John Bowlby and later expanded by Mary Ainsworth, the deepest emotional bonds are not formed with the one who gives the most, but with the one who manages his emotional availability strategically. This is not about disappearing to manipulate, it is about controlling the rhythm of your presence. Because when you are always there, when there is no pause, no uncertainty, the brain stops producing dopamine, the chemical of desire. But when you combine moments of profound connection with intervals of space and silence, you awaken something much stronger, a psychological process known as emotional anticipation. And anticipation is far more addictive than any gift, compliment, or constant attention. That is not manipulation, it is biology. Finally, the third concept. A woman does not remember what you did for her. She remembers how she felt about herself when she was with you. If she feels more alive, more authentic, more seen in your presence, you form a bond far deeper than any romantic gesture could create. This is precisely why the other 9 fail. They focus on her. You focus on the reflection she sees of herself when she is around you. And that difference places you in a category of your own. You are not another admirer fighting for entry. You are the mirror that makes her aware of emotions she never knew she had. You are not the 10th man in line. You are the one who awakens her inner world. Here's another psychological treasure few truly grasp. The human brain does not clearly separate what it imagines from what it remembers. In other words, if you can make her imagine you, if you can make her visualize moments with you, if she begins to daydream about your presence, then you have already entered her neural landscape. You are not simply occupying her thoughts, you are living inside her brain's emotional circuitry. And that, brother, is not achieved by the man who does the most, but by the man who evokes the most. It is invisible to the eye, but within her mind you are constructing an emotional empire. Machiavelli once wrote that intelligence conquers fortresses more effectively than brute force. Nowhere does that apply more perfectly than in the art of seduction. While others believe seduction is about making her laugh, you understand that it is about making her feel. And not just anything, but something irreplaceable, something that cannot be replicated by anyone else. Now you understand why this message is not for everyone. Because what you are learning is not a collection of phrases, it is a reconstruction of how you perceive power and attraction. You no longer compete. Because now you see the truth. Attraction is never won, it is generated. Desire is never begged for, it is ignited. And power is never forced, it is projected. That understanding, that emotional intelligence, elevates you far beyond the rest. The man who truly grasps the workings of the female mind does not need to manipulate it. He simply remains aware, composed, and intentional. She will never say it aloud, but she always feels it. The difference between a man who needs attention to feel alive and a man who is already whole within himself. And that kind of man, the one who neither chases, nor plays, nor reacts impulsively, holds a power that cannot be denied. While the other 9 speak endlessly to fill silence, you master the art of staying quiet at the right moment. Not because you lack words, but because you understand what they never will. Real power is not in speaking, it is in stirring emotion. And this, right here, is where Machiavelli would nod in approval. Because this is not about performance, it is about becoming so internally aligned, so firm in your presence, that your very existence becomes a message, a subtle warning, an emotional vibration she cannot ignore. She feels it, even if she cannot define it. Because what you communicate has nothing to do with words. It radiates through energy. There is a quiet tension when you speak to her. Not the trembling of anxiety, but the stillness of focus. She senses it. You are not playing the same game as everyone else. You are not here to please. You are not here to conquer. You are here to understand, to explore, not to perform, to connect, not to chase. And when a man like that stands before her, her emotional script begins to collapse, because she is used to triggering predictable reactions, instant attention, subtle desperation, endless validation. But you do not feed that system, not because you are indifferent, but because you operate on a higher plane of emotional mastery. And that level of control is never accidental. It is the result of awareness, discipline, and self-respect. By now, you understand the core truth. Female desire does not respond to effort, it responds to perception. If she perceives that you are rare, not because you act that way, but because you are that way, if she senses that you are not trying to earn her approval, but simply existing in your truth, her vision of you begins to shift. She starts to observe you differently. Her thoughts turn inward. Why does he not react? Why does he not chase? Why does he not need to be chosen? And in that confusion, the perfect tension is born, a blend of attraction and uncertainty. Because real desire always emerges where control disappears. The failure of the 9 others lies in their obsession with being understood. You, however, seek something far greater, to be felt. You do not explain, you embody. You do not promise, you demonstrate. You do not chase an ideal, you create one. And she feels that distinction in every moment. When you speak, your words carry gravity. You do not speak often, but when you do, each word lands with precision. Not because you are performing, but because you are certain of who you are. That kind of calm cannot be fabricated. It is forged through reflection, discipline, boundaries, and lived experience. That is why she cannot treat you like she treats the rest, because with you, her usual games find no oxygen. You do not chase anyone. You do not remain where there is no reciprocity. And though she may never say it out loud, that stance earns her respect. Machiavelli once said that well-directed fear maintains order, but in the realm of attraction, the power that commands respect is not fear. It is the emotional absence of a man who refuses to lower himself. When a woman senses that she could lose you, not because you are punishing her, but because you would walk away peacefully at any moment, her entire emotional system ignites. You step out of the realm of the replaceable. You enter a space few men ever reach, the space of the man whose absence leaves a void. And that void, no matter how many try, the others can never fill. Do you know why? Because you did not offer validation. You offered vision. You did not make promises. You created reflection. You did not place her on a pedestal. You invited her to rise. That subtle but firm pressure, that emotional gravity, is what separates another suitor from an experience. This is the Machiavellian principle of seduction, not through deceit, but through awareness, self-mastery, and emotional detachment. Because you understand something, the others never will. A man's greatness is not measured by how many eyes follow him, but by his ability to walk away without breaking his peace. That calm departure, that silent strength, is your ultimate weapon. Most men believe that staying is proof of love, that persistence, patience, and waiting define devotion. But what no one ever told them is this: in the emotional battlefield, the true power does not belong to the one who stays. It belongs to the one who can leave, without fear. And now comes the most brutal paradox of all. The man who is willing to walk away is always the one who ends up staying the longest. Why? Because he does not stay out of dependence. He stays because he chooses to. And that single distinction changes everything. She senses it, not through logic, but through instinct. You are not attached. You are not trapped in her validation. You are not trying to convince her of anything. If she leaves, you remain calm. If she stays silent, you remain centered. If she changes, you remain grounded. And that ability to remain whole, even in her absence, that is what makes you irreplaceable. The human mind only values what it fears it could lose. And when you project that you will never stay where you are not valued, you deliver a message stronger than any romantic confession. I can live without you and still choose to be here. But only while there is mutual respect. To a mature woman, that is not arrogance. It is magnetism. Because you are showing what most men lack: operational self-respect, not shallow pride, not ego, but clarity, the knowledge of who you are. You are not surrendering, you simply refuse to force echoes in empty rooms. Because you know your energy is too sacred to waste, and the moment she realizes she could truly lose you, everything shifts. You are no longer the pursuer, you become the one who can vanish. That does not generate fear. It awakens emotional urgency. Because when she senses that you could walk away with no anger, no games, no bitterness, only with peace, you stop being an option. You become a reference point. And that, my brother, is an entirely different level. That is when she no longer compares you to anyone else, because you are no longer competing. You have already won something far greater, self-mastery. At that stage, your presence becomes paradoxical. You are the one who can leave, and yet the only one worth staying for. You are the man who does not need love to feel complete, yet capable of giving it with the deepest sincerity. You demand nothing, but your absence carries weight. And that moment, that calm, unshakable moment, is where everything transforms. When you can look her in the eyes and say, without resentment, without anxiety, without pain, I do not need to be here, but while I was, I gave my all. That is the highest declaration of emotional strength, and the beauty of it is, you never need to say it, because she already knows, she has seen it, she has felt it. The 9 others will do anything to remain. You become unforgettable because you are the only one who can leave with peace. Machiavelli said it best. He who depends on another's will can never govern his own destiny. In seduction, that translates to this. If your emotional balance depends on her behavior, you have already lost. But if your peace is untouchable, then every woman will feel it, even if you never say a word. You are not here to earn approval. You are here to discern alignment. And if that alignment is not there, you walk away quietly, without anger, without complaint, with clarity. And it is in that silence, when you do not stop her, when you do not chase again, when you do not remind her of what she lost, that you begin to live rent-free in her mind. Because the man who does not fear losing is the only one who truly stays. It sounds powerful, doesn't it? You feel it in your chest, inspired, awake, certain. But remember, understanding without action means nothing. And this is where most men collapse. They listen, they nod, they feel moved, but they never apply it. They keep sending messages when they should hold silence. They keep chasing what ignores them. They keep lowering their standards just to be accepted in spaces that do not deserve them. So here it is, no excuses, no illusions. If you truly want a woman to choose you, even when she has 1,000 options, you must first become the man who chooses himself. And that begins with the smallest acts of emotional discipline. When she cancels plans, do not get angry, but do not reorganize your world either, as if you had nothing of your own to do. Respond calmly, move forward with your day. Let her see that your life does not bend to whim, it moves by choice. When she leaves your message unanswered, do not text again, do not explain, do not chase. Stay silent. Let your absence deliver the message your words should never need to shout, I do not compete for attention. When she grows distant, do not try to fill the gap with extra effort. Reflect her energy back to her. And if what she gives is cold, you draw your line, not out of pride, but out of standards. This is not something that happens overnight. It is a practice, a training. Every time you feel the urge to beg for validation and replace it instead with an act of self-respect, your brain begins to rewrite its own wiring. You start to feel strength where there used to be anxiety, certainty where there used to be fear, clarity where there used to be confusion. Yes, it hurts at first, because your ego wants everything to work. But the moment you realize that anything demanding you to shrink yourself was never meant for you, that is when the transformation begins. Machiavelli never wrote about love, but if he had, he would have written this. The greatest conquest is to never lose yourself in pursuit of another. So stop asking, how do I impress her? Ask instead, am I living as a man who chooses himself every single day? Because when the answer becomes yes, you no longer need to prove anything. She feels it before you speak. Most men will reach this point and still change nothing. They will keep chasing, keep competing, keep trying to win the attention of a woman who will forget them by next week. But you, no. You are here for a reason. Because something in you already knows. Desire is not begged for. It is created. Respect is not demanded. It is projected. And a woman never chooses the one who tries the hardest. She chooses the man who stands by his value first. You do not need to play the same game anymore, because when you become a living emotional experience, authentic, grounded, unshakable, you become impossible to replace. It no longer matters how many messages she receives, how many men chase, how much attention she attracts. You are not competing, you are leaving an imprint. And if until now you believed you were not enough, that you had to change, to perform, to become someone else, remember this truth. You do not need to be the best man in the world. You only need to be the kind of man who will never betray his own value for anyone. That is the man who remains. So if you are part of the 10% who will truly embody this Machiavellian mindset, this emotional authority, this relentless level of self-respect, then do two things right now. First, like this video, not for support, but as a statement. I am part of that 10%. Second, subscribe, because what comes next will go deeper, sharper, and more brutal. If this one shook you, the next one will transform you. And remember, she never chooses the man who worships her the most. She chooses the man who is never afraid to walk away.